The Point Podcast with Matt Mariglia is a production of Spartan Technology. Views expressed in the Point Podcast might not necessarily be those of the Star Point Central School District. Hey everybody, welcome to another episode of the Point Podcast with Matt Mariglia. Today my special guest is Kristin Rusinek, an 8th grade math teacher in the middle school. Kristin, thanks for joining me.
Thanks for having me.
So obviously these Point Podcasts are getting to know a little bit more about you and what you do. So besides an 8th grade math teacher, what else do you do in Star Point Middle School?
So I am the content area specialist for the middle school math department. I am a member of the middle school PBIS team. I'm on the middle school DEI team and the district K through 12 DEI team as well. And I'm also an SSA member. So I lead a family group for SSA, which is Safe School Ambassadors, which is a program where we work with students to learn strategies on how to intervene when they see bullying happening and, negative things happening with their peers.
Nice. So you're super involved in the middle school. Yeah. That sounds like it, which is that's a good thing, obviously. Did you grow up in Western New York?
Well, I guess outside of Rochester still technically.
Okay.
But I'm from outside of Rochester, Sodus, New York.
Sodus, New York.
Yep, so about 35 or so minutes outside of Rochester towards Syracuse.
I might have asked you this before. I've been to Sodus Point. Mm-hmm. Is Sodus Point anywhere near Sodus, New York?
Yeah, so Sodus Point is just down by Lake Ontario, mm-hmm. Right by the water. And it's like a little resort area, tiny little spot, but it's still Sodus. Everybody goes to the same school. It's
still called Sodus. Is there another school that's near it?
Williamson,
I remember.
So, yeah.
I did my little research on you. Mm-hmm. You played some hoops at Sodus.
I did.
Played some basketball.
Yep.
Also, we'll get to this, but you were a singer at some point.
Yeah.
Now, did you grow up there your whole life? What brought you to, I guess, Western New York?
Yeah, so I was there, my whole life, graduated high school there, went to Geneseo for college, and then met my soon-to-be husband at the end of college, and he lived here, and I wanted to get my master's degree, so I came to Buff State.
So I am also a Buffalo State graduate. Go Bengals. Mm-hmm. Even though my wife and my brother work at UB. So you said your husband's name is Christian? Or
yes.
Christian. Kristin and Christian. Mm-hmm. So Chris and Chris.
Yep.
That gets a little bit confusing, I would imagine.
Yep.
At Sodus also I know from being in the middle school that you are a singer. Mm-hmm. You used to sing, I think, the theme song for the middle school. Mm-hmm. I think we had a faculty band, and there was a teacher that wrote some lyrics or something.
Yeah, we had a faculty band, and Mike Fisher would rewrite the lyrics to popular songs for the band to play, and then a couple times I sang those. Yeah, at like an assembly.
In front of the whole school.
Mm-hmm.
Do you still sing, or?
Not as much anymore.
Yeah.
Every once in a while, I did. A few years ago, I sang a couple weddings for friends and funeral service.
Nice.
But
do you still want to sing?
Yeah, I miss it. I mean, I sing in my car.
Yeah? So yeah. I am quite the vocalist in my car with the windows up alone. Mm-hmm. I can belt it out with the best of them, but I don't know. I've never done it on stage. Mm-hmm. Maybe in 5th or 6th grade in a play, but usually with a lot of other singers.
I mean, I sang in college and, did shows, and I was in an a cappella group.
Now, my research has told me that you've got a couple of scholarships growing up that are pretty important. I know one was called the Ware Scholarship. Can you just mention what that was or what that is?
Yeah, so it's Wayne Action for Racism, against racism and inequality. And
did you get that as a senior, a junior?
Yes, so
senior?
It goes to any senior student who is a person of color, who is actively involved in things in their community and school to stand up against racism and inequality.
That's awesome. That is an awesome scholarship to get. I know that diversity, equity, and inclusion are a big part of who you are, and I'm glad that it is. That's something I think, especially in the Star Point community, that's needed. So that's awesome. Was Star Point your first teaching job?
Yes.
Yeah, really, your first teaching job. I remember when you interviewed, you were in a lesson across the hall from me, from Mrs. Smythe. They brought you down, and you had to interview. You were in your business suit and all that. So Star Point's your first teaching job.
Yeah,
How long you been here?
This is year 20.
20 years. Wow. So only Star Point and nowhere else?
Only Star Point, only the middle school
Wow.
in that same room.
Did you sub anywhere, or?
Yeah, I subbed at my home district.
Did you for a little bit?
Yeah, and then I worked just like some community programs
Cool.
while I was getting my master's degree.
So you're definitely a Star Pointer. If we cut you open, you're bleeding garnet and gray, no doubt. So a little more about Star Point, at least initially early on. Did you have a mentor or somebody that you look to for help or guidance or anything like that?
Yes, when I got hired, I had a great team of teachers because in middle school we're on our separate teams, but I worked very closely with Lindsay Addy. She was the other 8th grade math teacher.
She's in the high school now?
Yep, and we did everything together, worked really closely, had a great time together.
Cool.
And she showed me a lot.
That's good. That's good to have that mentor. Now, I think I know this story. You might have told it to me once or twice before, but I'm going to ask it anyways. Anything embarrassing or funny that happened to you early in your teaching career that you might want to share?
I don't know if I should share it. I had a student that was waiting to ask a question outside of my classroom, and I had just gone to my mailbox and had a stack of papers. And I think the confidential teacher emergency phone tree might have been on top. And I wasn't thinking about it. I was just carrying a whole bunch of papers. I said, sure, I'll help, and set the stack of papers down. And I think while I was helping the student with the math problem, I may not have realized that they could see just the top of the sheet, which had our assistant principal's phone number at the top.
My teacher brain, rule following brain is just going wild right now.
Me too, because I get nervous about that too. So I think that student was memorizing that phone number instead of listening to my math explanation, and then sent some prank phone calls to the assistant principal, and then said they got the number from me. So
can I ask who the assistant principal was at the time?
Yeah, Tony Pinella.
Tony Pinella, who's the superintendent of Amherst right now. If I were to talk to Tony Pinella, would he remember that story in a humorous way? Would he?
Yeah, I think so, because they realized that I obviously did not share the number.
Yes. We're rule followers, you and I, for the most part.
And then he joked with me about it later. So
my God, that's funny.
fine. But that was a little. So that might be why we get them in envelopes.
Mine was more, and I don't know if I ever shared this with you. Mine was more of a physical mishap. I tripped over an overhead cord. I was much younger, and I caught myself. I'm not going to say I did a split, but I was pretty well stretched out, and my pants split right down the back. And I bounced up against the chalkboard. That shows you how old I am. And the students, there was, I think, 2 students that could tell something had happened. And I looked at them like, don't say anything. And they, of course, let out, he split his pants. And to show you how much different it was when that happened to me, I gave the student my car keys to go out to my car and get some track pants for me. So I had a white shirt, a black tie, and bright red Adidas track pants for the rest of the day. So, yeah, that was embarrassing for me, that's for sure. Do you think 8th grade math is where you're going to stay, or the title of this podcast is A Mind for Math. Do you think that's where you're always going to stay, or do you foresee yourself maybe making a move to maybe another subject, or if that's your only certification, high school maybe, or no?
Yeah, I'm certified 7 through 12, so I would say you never know.
You never know.
But I really love being in the middle school. I love my colleagues and working with them and the things that I'm involved in at the middle school.
Right.
I think 8th grade's really nice because I have 8th grade math, but I also have a couple sections of advanced math that are taking high school algebra.
Oh, so you're kind of teaching high school right now.
Yeah, partially.
Right. And they take the Regents exam.
Yeah, they take the Regents exam, and I always chaperone the 8th grade trip. So there's just a lot of things I love about the middle school and my current position, but you never know.
If you love it, why change? I taught every grade in social studies 7 through 12 until I landed in 7th. And it was really tough for me to ever want to go to the high school. I always thought I would. I ended up landing in this job, but that's great that you have somewhere that you love. That's kind of cool to know. So we're going to talk a little bit about the alternative you. Okay. So when you're not, I know you have this mind for math and you love explaining it, you love talking about the growth mindset behind it. But when you're not doing math, what types of things are you doing? What are you interested in outside of school?
Yeah.
Are there?
Yeah.
Is there anything?
Yes.
Yeah.
My husband and I like to go to the movies.
Movies.
We go a lot on Tuesdays because that's discount night, and my husband loves a coupon. So we do love the movies.
Yeah.
I have a puppy.
So, you have a puppy?
Yeah.
I didn't know that.
Spending time with Maisie.
What's your puppy's name?
Maisie.
Maisie. You said it.
She's a mini Bernedoodle. And
a mini
Bernedoodle. Yes.
Bernedoodle. Is it a cross between a
poodle and a Bernese Mountain Dog?
Really? Mm-hmm. I don't think I've ever heard of that. I'm a cat person. I have one cat that's calico, but a mini Bernedoodle.
Yeah.
Curly hair, short hair?
Yeah, we keep her short, and she's like wavy to curly.
How old right now?
She's 2.5.
Wow, so you got to keep an eye out.
She's a lot.
Wow, that's crazy.
Yeah.
Mini Bernedoodle. Sounds like a car, like a Mini Cooper, a Mini Bernedoodle. Yeah. That's crazy.
I like to shop. I'm recently trying to get back into reading more. So those are some of the things.
So I know that ahead of time we talked about maybe talking about lupus, an autoimmune illness that you have been diagnosed with. I think you said it was 2008.
Yes.
Could you tell our listeners a little more about lupus, what it is, and how you live with it?
So it is an autoimmune disorder. Mm-hmm. Basically, my immune system doesn't work the way it should. It's a bit overactive.
Gotcha.
So it attacks things in the body that are good. So, joints, organs can have, multi-system involvement and issues. So I take medications that lower my immune system so that it doesn't attack my body, which just leaves me a little bit more open and susceptible to getting sick and things like that.
So I would think that the pandemic, at least teaching during the pandemic, was a stressor for you, a big-time stressor. COVID could have really caused you problems. Wow. Yeah. Do your students know about this? Do you discuss this with your students at all?
In the beginning, I didn't, because I was just kind of trying to deal with it myself. Mm-hmm. As time's gone on, I have decided to share it just so that the students would know. Right now, I'm in a pretty good place, but there would be times where if my joints were really sore, I was having trouble moving, or if an important organ becomes involved, I have to take a chunk of time off to make sure I can get over it. Sure. So I started to just tell them in the beginning of the year, just kind of a heads up. They're really good about, Mrs. Rusinek, I use this, so you want me to wipe it down?
Oh, wow, that's great.
So that was just something
So you said beginning of the year you tell them. You don't wait for an attack to happen. You just kind of tell them and get it out.
Just in case, and then they just are kind of aware if and when.
Do you find your students, because of this, are more apt to talk to you about maybe ailments and things that they have, or no?
Not so much as of recently. Right. I know when I was first diagnosed, I had a student that had a similar issue.
Oh, wow.
That actually, I came back to see them before I was out for the year because I had been out for a long amount of time, and it was really sweet. He checked in and just said, Mrs. Rusinek, I go through this. Here's some things I do. Wow. If you want, you can do this. It was really sweet.
That's a super powerful lesson in empathy for a student to get. That's great. That's I don't know that there's a lot of people that would share that with their students. So I commend you and think you're pretty brave for doing that. Is there any advocacy groups or anything that you are a part of or were a part of at any time?
So I stay up with the larger organization, but the one that was local to Buffalo, we were a part of. My husband was on the board for a little while. Mm-hmm. But I think it was always kind of a smaller group. We struggled to get funding for lupus.
Gotcha.
And therefore, I think this Western New York chapter just couldn't survive the pandemic.
My wife too suffers from an autoimmune disease, and I can tell you this, and maybe you can verify this, that it doesn't look like anything is wrong until it is.
An invisible.
It is, and it can come and go at times when maybe aren't the most convenient. Like for instance, when you're a teacher and you have to be here at 7:30. So that can't be easy, and applaud you for being willing to talk about it. Hopefully our listeners or anyone that's listening, if they're going through something similar, can find some solace in what you're going through. Yep. All right, Kristin, so we're coming to the end of this, and now my famous hit and run here. A segment that was made famous by a broadcaster named Michael Kay on the Yes Network. This is kind of like maybe the Colbert questionnaire, where I'm going to hit you with some quick questions. You don't know what they are. At least you're not supposed to know what they are. Mm-hmm. And then you just come with an answer, that first thing that pops into your head. Don't feel like you have to be right or wrong. Just give me what you think. Your favorite food?
So this is tough for me because I'm a foodie for sure. Like I like
foodie?
every type.
I didn't know there was a foodie. Me too.
Because I enjoy Mexican food quite a bit. I'm a burrito enchilada kind of girl. I love guacamole, but I also really enjoy Thai food, and I also like just kind of some Southern cooking that my family used to cook as well. So I don't know, it's hard for me to choose.
I should have asked this at the beginning, but are your parents from here? Are they local, or are they from other parts of the United States?
So my mom was born in New York City. Moved to Syracuse. That's pretty much where she grew up.
Gotcha.
My dad lived near Sodus area, but also in Florida. He was a part of a migrant family.
Didn't know that.
Yeah, so they went back and forth until they eventually decided to stay up north and ended up pretty much in a town really close to Sodus.
Wow, I did not know that.
Yeah.
So I know we're backtracking, but I honestly, I did not know that. I've known you for a long time, and I did not know that. That's crazy. I don't know how I moved from that to your favorite movie. What's your favorite movie?
So I love Goodfellas.
I've
seen that movie so many times.
Yeah.
I mean, like I said, we watch movies all the time, so I have lots of favorites. Like Bridesmaids is one of my favorite to rewatch.
Kristen Wiig.
Yes.
That one. Okay. What's the Melissa McCarthy, who's absolutely hilarious. Yeah. Whenever she's on SNL, it's a must watch. That's for sure. Your go-to Netflix show or streaming show when you really want to just watch a show.
Well, Netflix, not so much anymore, but I love The Sopranos. Theme. So I've rewatched that a couple of times. I do like, just like funny stuff. And right now I'm watching the second season of Shrinking. I'll pretty much try anything.
I don't know that one.
Yeah, it's Harrison Ford and Jason Segel.
Is it like a current Harrison Ford or an old Harrison Ford?
No, it's like it's right now, so he's like older. Wow. Yeah, so it's him current.
So when you're sitting at home and you need that comfort show, it's The Sopranos. It doesn't stress you out.
No, because I know what happens. So the first time it was stressful, but now I just
that's crazy. I'm going to ask you about some teaching stuff. So a regular day, what's the easiest thing about a regular day in teaching math? So common day in math, nothing too exciting. What's the easiest thing for you as a teacher?
I think we have a set routine, and as long as it's following that typical routine, the kids like that too. So we're all just kind of in a flow together, and then hanging out with the kids is the easiest.
Routine is easiest for you.
Yeah.
That's I'm just saying that because that was my thing. I loved routines.
Yeah,
I love being
able to. It's the comfort in knowing what's coming, I think.
Yeah. There's a book. Not that this is going to be some big educational podcast. There's a book called Edu Protocols where they talk about flows and routines and that you can teach them these protocols. Like there's one that's named the Iron Chef. Like you teach the kids all these protocols early in the year, and then when you're teaching a lesson, you just pull out a protocol and the lesson fits right into it. But that's basically what routines are.
Going on.
Yeah, it's a neat book. Check it out. There's 2 of them actually. Okay. Yeah, they're pretty neat. The hardest thing about teaching math, like a common day. What's the hardest thing?
I mean, math is tough. So when I have to explain a really difficult concept, that's tough because I'm trying to think.
Gotcha.
The more I still don't get it. I'm trying to think of all different ways to try to re-explain it. And I think it's just a lot in teaching in general to keep up with everything. I'm always working with Christy Stewart right now. We are always like reflecting, and if we change things, we've got videos to change, and there's just so many things that we've built into the program, but it does cause a ripple effect whenever you make changes.
And Christy is another 8th grade math teacher that works on the other team in Upper F-Wing. Yeah, the F-Wing gang. For listeners that don't know about the Upper F-Wing gang, what a great group of people in Upper F-Wing. I taught there for a short while, but I taught there. Your first car. What was your first car?
Hatchback Ford Escort.
Escort. Yeah. Fords unite. Mine was a Tempo. Yeah, I love
it. With the like slidey, the retractable goes back and forth. What am I thinking?
Seatbelt.
Thank you.
Right. Seatbelts now are all pull, but people don't remember
Mine
back in the
automatic.
day, just the top belt would across. And that's the only sound I can make across for you. That's kind of cool. Did it have any like unique markings or color or anything? I think maybe you told me this. I'm putting you on the spot.
We got it pretty cheap, and that's because there was a swear word keyed on the side. But my dad just buffed it out.
Right?
Yeah.
These kids today, they don't know.
No.
They just don't know. Your favorite piece of tech all time could be old, something that's not really used anymore. My old piece of tech, I would say a pager, which is funny.
Yeah.
But what would you say?
I mean, probably the cell phone. I mean, I didn't have my first cell phone until towards the end of college. So being able to call and have in case of emergency. I mean, when the Nintendo came out, I was super pumped, but the one that's probably the most life-changing was the cell phone.
The cell phone.
Yeah.
Those early cell phones were something else, weren't
Yeah,
they?
it had an antenna.
I called mine the brick. The Nokia brick is what I called it. All right, so only 2 left here.
Okay.
You're sitting on the couch with Chris. Chris and Chris are watching The Sopranos. What's that late night snack that you're going to that, no, regardless of calories or health or whatever, if you could have that late night snack, what would it be?
It's definitely chocolate of some sort. I prefer chocolate with peanut butter. So if I could have like a peanut butter chocolate sundae, that would be my jam.
Just like Chris and Chris are meant to be together, chocolate and peanut butter are meant to be together.
Yes.
All right, last one here, Kristin, and I want to thank you for your time ahead of time.
Yeah.
If you're in a foxhole, stuck in a foxhole, and you got to get out, you're down there by yourself, who's the person that you're going to have with you? And they can be alive or dead, someone famous or someone current living now.
Goodness.
Who would be down there in the foxhole with you?
I mean, my immediate thought is my husband.
He would be able to get you out.
Yeah, he's a smart guy.
He's smart, little handy.
Mm-hmm.
That's awesome. That's awesome.
Also, he's my husband, so I love him.
So you want him down there?
Yeah, sure.
You know, not Arnold Schwarzenegger or somebody like that. Well, Kristin, this has been an absolute pleasure. You and I have known each other quite a bit, so you were an obvious person for me to have on the podcast.
Thank you.
I think, I don't know if I said this earlier. I don't think I did. You know, I was speaking to a teacher in the Fricano building about my daughter who just got done student teaching with you.
Yeah.
And I told them that she was student teaching with, and they were like, Kristin Rusinek, who's that? And I thought, nobody knows who she is, at least not down that way. And it's the same as if I said a second grade teacher to
sure,
you,
yeah.
you know, be like, who's that? So I thought that you would be a perfect guest for the podcast because of all the different things that are about you. And I think someone in Fricano would love to listen to this stuff and get to know you. So that's kind of cool. Well, thank you, Kristin, for being here on the Point Podcast, and hope to our listeners that you listen to more episodes. This is episode number 2, and we do have some advertisement through the school board. So hopefully the school board and some other people in the PTA will get this out so that people can learn about the great people that are here at Starpoint.
Awesome.
So, all right, Kristin, thanks for joining us.
Thank you.
See ya.
See ya.
The Point Podcast with Matt Mariglia is a production of Spartan Technology. All views expressed on the podcast might not necessarily be those of Starpoint Central School District. Listen to more episodes on podcasts on YouTube.